My name is Raina Bellamy. 2 years into a marriage I once believed was built on trust, the illusion shattered, not with a bang, but with a silent fracture. The kind that begins small, almost invisible, until one day the entire foundation gives way. That was the day I learned the truth. My husband, Tristan, had been unfaithful. The other woman, Daisy, young, unseasoned, fresh from her company orientation, and barely old enough to order a glass of wine. We met face to face not long after I found out. I remember the moment with unsettling clarity, as if time itself had slowed. The air between us was thick, heavy, like a single thread holding a chandelier, moments from snapping. We stood in the grand hall of Tristan's family estate, sunlight spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting elongated shadows on the cold marble beneath our feet. And there she was, Daisy, her posture straight, chin lifted in defiance. She wore a designer dress that, frankly, belonged in someone else's closet. Her eyes sparkled, but not with innocence. It was something sharper, arrogance mixed with conviction. "Raina," she said, her voice soft, but edged with steel. "You and I are not the same. I love Tristan for who he is." I smiled, not out of pain, nor rage, just realization. My gaze lowered to her dress, limited edition, from 2 seasons ago. "That dress you're flaunting?" I said calmly. "I wore it to a gala 2 years ago. Next time, tell Tristan to get you something current." That was it. No shouting, no tears, no begging for second chances. I filed for divorce that same week. But I didn't just walk away from the marriage. I dismantled everything my family had ever invested into Tristan's world. Contracts, gone. Endorsements, revoked. Connections, severed. Without the silent scaffolding of my name and my family's fortune, his company folded like a paper crane in a storm. No one had told Daisy that the empire she admired was never really his. The house she played queen in? Built with my money. The furniture she lounged on? Chosen by me. Even the dress she wore so proudly? Paid for by the very legacy I brought into the marriage. She thought she was walking into a fairy tale. She didn't realize she was living in a castle someone else had already bled to build. The day I received the video from Veronica, I was at a jewelry showroom, finalizing the purchase of a $20 million custom emerald set. The gems glinted under the lights, radiant, timeless. My phone buzzed, a message from Veronica. I opened it. The video was grainy, secretly filmed through a cracked door. The room inside was dimly lit in golden tones, intimate, deceitful. Tristan lounged on a velvet sofa, legs crossed, with Daisy curled beside him like a pampered kitten. He whispered something into her ear. She laughed. He smiled, that same smile I once believed belonged to me. Yes, that Daisy. And that Tristan. The man I once called my first love. My childhood friend. The one I believed I was building a life with. But 2 years in, he had replaced loyalty with novelty. Traded the woman who stood by him through ruin for someone younger, softer, easier to mold. My hand clenched around the phone. I turned off the screen and leaned back, letting my head rest against the seat. The exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. The kind of tired that seeps into your bones when you realize the person you trusted most never truly valued you. Veronica's messages kept coming, full of rage and disbelief. How dare he? He's nothing without you. What a disgrace. But she wasn't exaggerating. Before our marriage, Tristan's family had lost everything. Bankrupt overnight. I married him against my parents' wishes, believing that love would be enough. It was my family's power, reputation, and wealth that pulled his family from financial ruin. Every deal, every partnership, every ounce of credibility Tristan had came through my name. But memory is a fragile thing for men like Tristan. So I replied to Veronica with a half joke. "Relax. I just bought a jewelry set. It's stunning. Might even look better on you." She wrote back instantly. "Raina, are you okay? Don't scare me like that. I'm coming now." Her concern warmed something in me. Maybe I was hurting. Yes, but more than that, I was disappointed, deeply. I leaned back, fingers pressed to my temples. Above me, the starlit ceiling of the car twinkled softly, a feature in the $8 million luxury sedan gifted by my father on my wedding day. Everything else had changed. People lied, people left, but the car stayed loyal. Between men and money, I was beginning to see the truth. Money is more faithful. As the car hummed through the city streets, I found myself settling into that clarity. My phone buzzed again. A friend request. I glanced at the profile photo. Overly filtered, self-satisfied, unmistakable. Daisy. I smirked. Turn the car around, I told the driver. Minutes later, I sat across from her in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. The smell of roasted beans lingered in the air, mingling with the soft piano in the background. Outside, golden autumn leaves danced in the wind, tapping gently against the window pane. She wore white today, crisp, pristine, expensive. Likely financed by Tristan's rapidly draining account. Her back straight, her eyes burning with pride. Or was it fear? Reina, she began again. Same tone, same sharpness. You and I are not the same. I love Tristan for the man he is. I didn't speak immediately. I simply watched, the way her fingers clutched the ceramic cup a little too tightly, her knuckles pale. She was nervous. She didn't want me to see it, but I did. She thought I was just another woman with a silver spoon and too much time. She didn't know the fight it took to build the life she was now borrowing. She didn't know I was the storm she should have feared. She continued speaking, unaware that every word she uttered only revealed her insecurity. You could never understand how hard Tristan works, Daisy said, her voice laced with defiance. I stirred my coffee slowly, the spoon clinking gently against the porcelain, a quiet rhythm amidst the storm she thought she was creating. On my wrist, a Bulgari serpent bracelet caught the light, coiling around my skin, like a quiet reminder of power and rebirth. Next to it, my platinum diamond ring shimmered, not as a symbol of marriage anymore, but of self-worth reclaimed. She called it an easy life, said I spend too much. I raised a brow, offering a soft, deliberate smile. Well, I said, voice calm, what can I say? I am rich. Her expression faltered, not used to hearing a woman's own her wealth without shame. But I didn't stop there. I'm the kind of woman who can purchase an entire island development project just because I feel like it. I built my empire, brick by brick. From late nights negotiating with men twice my age to mornings spent rebuilding deals that others would have walked away from. If I don't enjoy the rewards, who should? Daisy blinked, momentarily speechless. She had come expecting a breakdown, maybe even tears, but all she met was composure. That confused her. My eyes slid down to the Chanel logo stitched into her dress, outdated by 2 seasons. A piece even fashion houses had moved on from. She wore it with pride, but I recognized desperation wrapped in couture. I leaned back, giving her a slow, measured once-over before I spoke again. That dress? I said gently. I wore it 2 years ago. Next time, ask Tristan to buy you something in season. Her face flushed crimson, her lips pressed into a thin line, as she bit down hard, trying to hold herself together. But it was too late. The truth had already sunk in. She wasn't the first, only the newest, and not even that unique. I took one last sip of coffee, the warmth spreading through me like closure. As I rose to leave, I caught the smallest glimpse, her eyes darting toward the exit, misted with tears. Her frame, once so proud, seemed to shrink inwards. But me, I wasn't shrinking anymore. I had spent too long folding myself to fit into someone else's idea of love. That chapter was over. Reina, she called out one last time, summoning what was left of her pride. You and I are nothing alike, she declared. Her voice trembled beneath the surface of righteousness. I love Tristan for who he is, not for what he has. She crossed her arms, clinging to her illusion like a lifeline. You just sit at home all day spending money. How could you possibly understand what he goes through? I stirred my coffee again, slowly, with intention. The cream swirled into the dark liquid like 2 opposing forces, learning how to coexist. The bracelet on my wrist shimmered in rhythm with the light above. Tiny serpents and diamonds, whispering tales of rebirth and survival. I didn't reply right away, not because I lacked words, but because I had outgrown the need to justify myself. Then I said effortlessly, "Well, what can I say? I am rich." The silence between us deepened. She wasn't ready for calm. People like her mistake peace for weakness. They think the absence of drama means defeat. But I was never fighting her. My battle had always been with the version of myself that stayed too long in rooms where I wasn't respected. "Why are you smiling, Reina?" she pressed, her voice rising in desperation. "You wouldn't understand what Tristan and I have. It's real love." My eyes drifted downward again, to her dress, her posture, her shaking hands. Real love doesn't have to prove itself so loudly. It doesn't hide behind luxury it didn't earn. I let my gaze trail to my freshly manicured nails, each tipped with tiny diamonds that caught the cafe's golden light like stars. "I wore that dress 2 years ago," I said softly, sipping the last of my coffee. "Next time, ask Tristan to buy you something that isn't so expired." Her face turned scarlet. Her lips parted, but no words came. I stood up slowly, brushing an invisible speck of dust from my skirt. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her glance toward the door, her eyes glossy, her body folding inwards like paper meeting fire. And then, a voice behind me. "Reina." I turned. "Tristan." He walked toward us, steps quick, shoulders tight. His face was tense, drawn with discomfort. He moved instinctively between us, standing as a physical barrier, like a shield, or maybe a wall he knew he had built too late. He said nothing at first, just stood there, jaw clenched, his body angled protectively toward Daisy. Her hands clutched the back of his shirt like a frightened child, hiding from a storm she had summoned, but didn't know how to survive. His eyes met mine, guarded, familiar, distant. "There's no need to speak so harshly," he said finally. "There's nothing going on between me and Daisy. Not in the way you think. Not in the way I think." Daisy's trembling hands, her rehearsed words, their body language, their silence. It was all louder than any confession. I took a breath, not to calm myself, but to ground the moment in finality. And then I spoke steady and clear. "There's no need for apologies anymore. The divorce is inevitable, as long as you're prepared to pay the price." I paused and looked him directly in the eye. "When we got married, it was your family who needed mine. But this time, this isn't about my family. This is about me." A soft smile touched my lips. "I'm not Mrs. Tristan anymore. I am Miss Bellamy." Tristan opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say a word, Daisy suddenly stepped forward. "Reiner, how can you talk to Tristan like that?" she said, her voice rising with false indignation. I folded my arms and looked at the wrinkles on Tristan's once crisp shirt. Daisy followed my gaze, bit her lip, and whispered gently, "I didn't mean to wrinkle your shirt then." As if to make it better, she reached out to smooth the fabric. Tristan caught her wrist softly, a slight frown on his face. "It's fine," he said in a quiet voice. "It's just a shirt. I'll buy another one." I nearly laughed aloud. That shirt. It was part of a bespoke suit, custom made by one of the world's top designers, one of a kind. That designer only agreed to make it because we were close friends, and I had asked by another one. "That's cute." What he really meant was, "Can I use your name to get another one for free?" Maybe my gaze said too much, too openly, because Daisy instinctively shrank back behind Tristan, like I just lashed out at her. She looked terrified, lips pressed tightly together, as if she were the one being attacked. Tristan's face darkened, his tone turning cold. "There's really nothing between us," he said. "Daisy's just timid. Don't bully her." Bully her? I hadn't lifted a finger. She was the one sleeping with a married man. And somehow I was the villain in this story. I tightened my grip on my handbag, turned without another word, and walked out of the cafe with my head held high. "It's fine," Tristan said with a gentle smile, turning slightly to glance at Daisy. "It's just a shirt. I can always buy another one." I almost laughed. Cold, quiet, and bitter, but only in my head. That shirt he so casually dismissed. It wasn't just some off-the-rack item. It was part of a bespoke suit, handcrafted by one of the world's most prestigious designers. A piece that took weeks of fittings and attention to every detail, cut and stitched for his frame alone. That designer wouldn't have even entertained the request if it weren't for me because of my connections. But now he spoke as if it were nothing, as if luxury had always come this easy to him. How convenient it must be living in a world paid for by someone else, yet thinking you built it yourself. Maybe I didn't hide my contempt well enough, because the next thing I knew, Daisy instinctively shrank back behind Tristan's shoulder. Her wide eyes were brimming with artificial innocence, like she'd just been wronged. Like I was the villain in all this. Tristan's jaw tightened. His whole demeanor shifted, warmth gone, replaced by a sharp edge in his voice. There's really nothing going on. Daisy's just timid. Don't take it out on her. Excuse me. My brows arched slightly, but I said nothing. I hadn't even said a word to Daisy, hadn't made a scene. I hadn't done anything. She was the one who'd inserted herself into my marriage, the one hiding behind other people's pity. And now I was the one being told not to pick on her. I was the one who had been betrayed. I was the one who had every right to be angry. I grabbed my handbag, stood up, and left the cafe without so much as a backward glance. By the time I got home, the mask I wore in public had already crumbled. I walked straight into the bathroom, turned on the hot water, and let the steam fill the space. The shower washed away the physical grime of the day, but not the heaviness sitting in my chest. When I stepped out, I wrapped myself in a robe, toweled off my hair, and immediately picked up my phone. I called my lawyer, drafted the divorce papers. I said, my voice even and steady, no emotion, no room for second guessing. Just then, my assistant appeared at the doorway of my home office, holding a folder. This just came in, she said. It's the contract for the island resort development. They needed your signature. I took the folder and flipped it open. Oh, right. That project last year as a gift to myself for finally marrying Tristan. I had purchased a private island. But back then, I thought it was a symbol of our future, a blank canvas for the life we were supposed to build together. Turns out the only person building anything was me. At least, the development team was efficient. The planning and investment were already well underway. After signing the documents, my assistant reminded me, you've got a fitting with Linda tomorrow. Your custom wardrobe for the new season. Don't forget Linda. She had been my designer long before I got married. We were close in age, and over time, what began as a professional relationship slowly blossomed into a real friendship. She understood my tastes, my moods, and even the silence I sometimes used in place of words. I nodded absently, but just as my assistant turned to leave, my phone rang again. It was Tristan's mother. Her voice, smooth and condescending, informed me that I was expected at the family estate for dinner that evening. The tone in her voice made my stomach clench. This wasn't going to be a friendly meal. After a beat, I spoke calmly. Tell Linda to come the day after tomorrow instead. Then I got ready. I chose a long Gucci evening gown in deep emerald, a color that complemented my skin tone, and carried quiet power slipped into a pair of Dior heels, sharp as daggers from my collection. I picked a set of rare jewelry I'd won at a private auction, emerald, surrounded by diamonds, gleaming like they carried secrets. I looked into the mirror. The woman looking back at me was poised, elegant, untouchable, exactly how I needed to be. Tonight, when I arrived at the estate, the foyer smelled faintly of fresh-cut lilies and the lingering scent of polished wood. The chandelier overhead glimmer like a crown of stars, and then I saw her Daisy. She was curled up comfortably on the living room sofa beside Tristan's mother. The two were chatting and laughing like they'd been lifelong friends. Teacups clinked softly, and the atmosphere was sickeningly cozy. I walked in with practiced grace and greeted them politely. Tristan's mother didn't even lift her head to acknowledge me, not until Daisy leaned over and whispered something into her ear. Only then did she glance up barely and gesture to the couch with a cold mechanical smile. The light from the chandelier caught on Daisy's dress. She'd gone all out tonight, hair curled into soft waves, lips painted a soft rose, a pearl necklace, just a touch. Too much for the occasion. She was trying hard, too hard. But no matter how much polish she wore, she still looked misplaced in this grand estate, like a knockoff clutch in a designer showroom. I had barely settled into my seat when Tristan's mother muttered almost to herself, "Is that really what you chose to wear?" My hand froze on the armrest. Just a whisper, a little jab, but I heard it clearly for a second. I was stunned, not by her rudeness, but by how shamelessly casual she was about it. This wasn't even new. She had never liked me, but now with Daisy by her side, she didn't even bother hiding it anymore. And that said everything. When Tristan and I got married, it was my family's wealth and influence that pulled his family's business back from the edge of collapse. We poured in funds, opened up connections, cleared debts, but in his mother's eyes, all the credit went to Tristan's so-called capability. She treated my contributions like they were invisible, brushing them aside as if my family had merely fulfilled some moral obligation. I never once argued with her. I used to believe that keeping the peace was more important than airing grievances. Every time I visited their home, I came bearing luxury gifts, Hermes scarves, rare teas, custom-made supplements. She took them all with open arms, smiling sweetly to my face, only to gossip behind my back the moment I left. This time, though, I arrived empty-handed, and she noticed her expression tightened the moment I walked through the door without a single gift bag in hand. But I just smiled calmly, watching her silently fume. This woman, who could laugh and drink tea with Daisy, Tristan's mistress, as if they were lifelong friends, now had the audacity to act offended because I didn't bring her a present. She was practically cheering for our divorce. Yet she still had the goal to play the disappointed elder. I gave a slight nod and answered evenly, "Yeah, why wouldn't I?" Her eyes dropped to the necklace I wore. It was a new piece I had picked up just this morning, a delicate diamond choker that glimmered subtly under the warm lights. Her gaze lingered a beat too long before she scoffed, "Reina, don't take this the wrong way, but you really should try to understand how hard Tristan works. You don't earn money yourself, so you wouldn't know how tough it is for him." As she spoke, she turned to Daisy with an affectionate smile, her tone instantly softer. "Now, Daisy sweetheart, look at you so thin. Come here and try some of the bird's nest soup I made especially." I almost laughed aloud. Bird's nest soup, if memory served. That was the batch I had flown in from Southeast Asia just a few days ago, delivered via private jet and stored in their fridge under my instructions. And now she was proudly offering it to Daisy, like she had gone to all that effort herself. She criticized me with every breath, yet shamelessly enjoyed the luxuries I provided. I leaned back slightly in my chair and murmured, "Are we bankrupt again or something?" Then, flashing a faint smile, I added, "It's just a necklace. How expensive could it be?" In truth, this necklace was one of hundreds. I owned my collection at home, satin velvet-lined display cases, each piece more extravagant than the last. This one merely a casual pick for the day. Her face darkened immediately. "Daisy, ever." The peacemaker stepped in with an awkward laugh, trying to ease the tension hanging in the air like thick smoke. Right then a sound came from the front door. Footsteps. Tristan had returned as he stepped into the room. His eyes landed on Daisy first, and surprise flickered across his face. He hadn't expected her to be here. His mother rose quickly from her seat and took Daisy's hand with a flourish, as if presenting her with pride. "Tristan, perfect timing. We'll be making an announcement later," she said, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Daisy skipped over to him like a little bird, all light steps and cheerful energy. He glanced down at her, a softness creeping into his eyes. But when he looked up at me, that softness vanished. He didn't even meet my gaze. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice low. I casually adjusted the Van Cleef Apple's bracelet on my wrist, the diamonds catching the light. I gave him a lazy, teasing smile. "Your mom invited me." He turned toward, a flash of frustration flickering in his eyes, but she either didn't notice or chose to ignore it. Dinner was an awkward affair. Halfway through the meal, His mother cleared her throat with exaggerated purpose and announced Daisy will be staying in the old house for a few days. I thought it would be nice for her to spend time here. Daisy looked elated. Tristan, mid-reach for a piece of fish, froze with his chopsticks in the air. He didn't say a word, but his expression clearly said he wasn't thrilled. Still, he didn't object. He hated public confrontations. His mother, however, seemed to revel in the moment, fully enjoying the discomfort she was orchestrating. This dinner wasn't about food or family. It was a performance, and I was the designated villain. I barely touched my food, just stirred the soup with my spoon, and watched their little play unfold. It was funny, really. A couple of years ago, when Tristan's family was scrambling to stay afloat, they were humble and grateful. But now that they had clawed their way back, they were once again putting on airs, arrogance wrapped in silk and smiles. They'd forgotten how quickly fortune can change. But that's all right. Maybe after their next bankruptcy, they'll remember what humility tastes like. Daisy tried to hold herself back, but in the end she couldn't resist reaching for another half bowl of rice. Her hands moved quickly, almost guilty, but the satisfaction on her face was impossible to hide, and honestly, who could blame her? The chef I hired was no ordinary cook. He was personally recommended by a former master chef from the state banquet kitchen, a true culinary prodigy, earning a monthly salary of 300,000 yuan every ingredient from the fish to the vegetables. Even the water used for cooking was air-shipped fresh every single day from all over the country. This wasn't food, this was an experience. Of course, it tasted better than anything they'd ever had. As I sat at the head of the table, I observed the scene quietly. Tristan's mother and Daisy were both glowing with satisfaction, cheeks flushed. I slightly glazed over from the rich flavors and fragrant dishes. They looked like they were eating at a dreamlike royal banquet, not at the home of the woman their son was about to betray. I reached for my teacup, took a slow sip, then gently placed it back on the sorcerer without raising my voice. I took out the divorce papers from my bag and laid them down on the table with a soft thud that cut through the cozy clinking of chopsticks and porcelain. "Tristan," I said evenly, "let's get a divorce." The room went silent. The clutter of utensils stopped midair. No one moved. The warmth, the knees that had filled the dining room a moment ago, instantly vanished, replaced by a tense, brittle stillness. Tristan was the first to recover, blinking like he hadn't heard me correctly. "Reiner, what kind of joke is this?" he said with a forced laugh, his expression stiff. His mother's face darkened in an instant. The friendly, gracious attitude she just displayed toward Daisy evaporated. She slammed her chopsticks down, the sound sharp and startling. "Reina, what are you doing? Just because I let Daisy stay here for a few days, you are throwing a tantrum." She snapped Daisy right on cue, put on her well-practiced look of helplessness, her head lowered slightly, her shoulders hunched in a perfect display of innocent suffering. I didn't even spare her a glance. My eyes were fixed on Tristan, filled with mockery and cold amusement. "A joke," I said slowly. "Your mistress is practically moving in, and I'm the one who's supposed to laugh it off." The rest of the meal dragged on in uncomfortable silence. The dishes were exquisite, the aroma lingering, but for them, the food must have turned to ash. I, on the other hand, felt perfectly content. After dinner, I handed Tristan a pen and pushed the divorce papers toward him. "Sign it." He hesitated, fumbling for excuses, mumbling something about needing time. His eyes darted between me and his mother, clearly trying to buy himself breathing room. But why run? The truth was already out, and I had no intention of pretending anymore. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Veronica calling. I stepped outside to answer, needing a breath of fresh air to shake off the tension. The crisp night air felt good against my skin, carrying a hint of jasmine from the garden. But barely a few steps out the door, I noticed someone following me. Daisy gone was the smug confidence she'd shown at the cafe. Now under the porch light, she looked small, careful, like she was trying not to be noticed. I brushed my hair back, letting the Cartier earring catch the light, and folded my arms. I was curious what kind of performance was she going to put on this time. She bit her lip, her expression pitiful. "Rainer, I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "If you are uncomfortable with me staying here, I'll move out right away." I never wanted to cause any trouble. I sighed internally. My mind was still on the divorce. This little scene was barely a distraction. But she wasn't finished. "It's my fault," she added, her brows furrowing, like she was some kind of fragile, misunderstood heroine. "I didn't mean to create a rift between you and Tristan. I just wanted to know him better. I never meant to come between you two." I looked at her. Really looked. Her pale, delicate face was twisted into the perfect picture of guilt and sorrow. It would have been convincing if I hadn't seen the same expression recycled 10 times before I laughed. So this was the act she used to win. Tristan over. Did he leave his brain in the company shredder still? I smiled politely and replied, "Well, I'm divorcing Tristan. Anyway, you can do whatever you want there just for a second." I saw it, that flicker of joy in her eyes. Her lips almost twitched upward. She thought she'd won. But then, just as I walked past her, she collapsed right there in the courtyard. Perfect timing. Because guess who walked out at that exact moment? Tristan. He rushed over immediately, panic etched on his face, grabbing her shoulders as if she were made of glass. "Daisy, are you okay?" he asked, voice trembling. Then he looked up at me, face filled with reproach, anger simmering behind his eyes. "Rainer, if you are mad, be mad at me. Why are you treating Daisy like this?" I almost laughed. Again, a part of me wanted to applaud. It was a flawless little play, except I'd already read the script, and this time I wasn't buying a ticket. I let out a cold, bitter laugh that echoed through the room, like ice shattering on marble. Tristan might as well donate his eyes to someone who'd actually used them. The way he stood there blindly defending Daisy, without a shred of doubt, as if common sense had taken a vacation with that level of gullibility, and a brain that could be looped into knots. How was it even a question? Which family was doomed to bankruptcy? I glanced down at the hands he was using to hold her, as if protecting something precious, and my gaze sharpened. "Don't forget to sign the divorce papers," I said coolly, turning to leave, but his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, his grip tight, his voice cracking with panic. "Rainer, wait, what are you doing?" he pleaded, eyes wide. "Daisy and I were innocent. She's the one who has feelings for me. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd misunderstand. I didn't want to hurt you." I stared at him in disbelief, afraid I'd misunderstand. How convenient that was always his excuse, deflecting responsibility under the pretense of protecting me. Classic without a word. I pulled out my phone, opened the video Veronica had sent me, and thrust it in his face. His expression shifted immediately. First confusion, then disbelief, followed by pure panic. Finally, a sliver of anger flashed in his eyes as he recoiled, his voice rising defensively. "You had someone spy on me," he snapped. Oh, the irony! I watched him unravel in real time, the mask slipping from his face. That's the thing about men like Tristan. They only lose their temper when they know the truth is undeniable, when they've been caught red-handed, and their lies no longer hold weight. "Spy on you?" I raised an eyebrow, my tone razor sharp. "Please, with how blatant you two were acting in public, I'm shocked the whole thing hasn't gone viral already." But he didn't stop there. He never did. "Rainer, you are always like this," he said, throwing his hands up so high and mighty. "Have you ever stopped to think about how I feel?" He started pacing, voice growing louder with each sentence. "Sure, you are the heiress of the Bellamy family, and ever since my family ran into trouble, you've acted like you were doing us a favor, like you are better than me. Well, guess what? The Tristan family isn't bankrupt anymore. I don't need your charity. I can run the company on my own now." I stood frozen for a moment, as if the air had been knocked from my lungs. So that's what he thought. All those late nights I spent helping him draft proposals, the meetings I arranged, the connections I lent him, just charity, all the silent support, the reputation I risked for his comeback reduced to a condescending favor in his eyes. A sharp sting fled in my chest. For 2 years, I'd thought we were building something together. Turns out, I was building a pedestal for him to climb just high enough to spit down on me. I forced a smile, the kind that burned. "If that's what you really think," I said softly, "then there's nothing more to talk about." I pulled my wrist free from his grasp and turned on my heel. As I walked away, his voice cracked behind me, shouting my name in frustration. I could hear Daisy trying to calm him down, her voice tremulous, almost pleading. But none of that mattered anymore, because deep down, we all knew the truth. Tristan didn't want a divorce. He panicked. The moment I stepped out the door, the messages started pouring in almost immediately. Long paragraphs, voicemails, apologies, explanations, excuses. I didn't even bother to read them. I blocked his number. Then I booked a private jet, grabbed Veronica, and flew straight to the Maldives. I left everything else, paperwork, settlements, legal filings. To my lawyer, I was done. But Tristan, he wasn't. He refused to sign the divorce papers, kept dragging things out, kept trying to negotiate, kept pretending he still had control. And then Daisy dropped her bomb. She was pregnant. I got the news while I was lying on a sunbed, cocktail in hand, soaking up the afternoon sun. The waves crashed lazily against the shore as Veronica reclined next to me under the shade of a white parasol. She looked over, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. "You won't believe this," she said, flipping her phone toward me. "Tristan's been losing his mind ever since we left. My brother says he's a total wreck." I tilted my sunglasses and scrolled through the headline. "Tristan's fiancé expecting child amid divorce drama." A smirk tugged at my lips. "I just love watching men scramble," I said, sipping my drink. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a new number, but I already knew who it was. Tristan, his 108th number. By my count, I opened the message. He claimed there was nothing going on with Daisy, that he never returned. Her feelings that she had misunderstood, acted on her own. And that night when he defended her, it was just a moment of confusion. Heat of the moment, nothing more. I almost laughed. He still thought he could spin this. Lying back on the chaise lounge, I watched the clouds drift across the bright blue sky. His true feelings didn't matter anymore. He could wrap his words in silk, try to rewrite the past, but reality had already spoken louder than he ever could. I typed one sign and hit send. "I know Daisy is pregnant." No emojis, no punctuation, no kindness, just the truth served cold like everything else. He'd lost. The message thread, which had been buzzing non-stop just days earlier, suddenly went dead. Tristan never messaged me again. I switched off my phone without hesitation and threw myself into a blissful vacation with Veronica. Sunlight, cocktails, yacht parties. I didn't spare Tristan a single thought. The Maldives was paradise, and I had no intention of letting a failed marriage haunt me under the golden sun. 2 days after I returned to Eldoria, both Tristan and Daisy showed up uninvited at my current residence. It was early morning, the light pouring into my villa through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Tristan stood stiffly in the living room, holding out a freshly signed divorce agreement. His posture was tense, as if the papers weighed more than they should. I didn't take them from him. Instead, I lounged comfortably on the cream velvet chaise, flipping through a fashion magazine. When I finally reached out, I took the documents with 2 fingers and skimmed through them like they were nothing more than a menu after all. When I was still in the Maldives, I had already asked my assistant to finalize the purchase of that prime plot of land in Eldoria, Southern District. The same one Daisy used to dream about. I lifted my chin, gesturing vaguely toward the table. "Just leave it there." Tristan's face was unreadable, a swirl of pride, frustration, and something that might have been regret, but he kept his mouth shut. Daisy, on the other hand, was glowing, clearly unable to hide her satisfaction. Her entire aura screamed, "I won." I ignored them both, treating them like part of the decor. I had far better things to do. Veronica's birthday was coming up, and I had already started planning her gift. a full-scale amusement park in the South District. Something fun, bold, and impossible to ignore. Just like her realizing I wasn't about to entertain polite conversation, Tristan rubbed his palms against his jeans, awkwardly looking like he was itching to leave without even glancing up. I said coolly, "Take care now. No need for goodbyes." As soon as they stepped out, I picked up the divorce agreement again, this time, with a light heart relief washed over me. Not in waves, but like a switch had been flipped. It was finally over. According to the terms, Tristan walked away with almost nothing. A few personal items from his family's home, and that was it before our wedding. He had signed a strict prenuptial agreement, and all of my premarital assets had been notarized and locked down tight. The man wouldn't see a single cent of mine. I looked around the room. The villa was quiet and filled with understated luxury. The air smelled faintly of Osmond Loose from the diffuser in the corner. Rosewood furniture gleamed in the sunlight, and just one of those antique chairs in the living room was worth tens of millions. And this just one of many properties under my name. Even the Tristan family's old estate, the one they had moved back into, had been renovated on my dime. But back then, his family business was barely surviving, and my parents didn't want me to suffer after marriage, so they invested heavily. Every polished floorboard, every imported chandelier, every hand-painted mural was my choice. After the cooling-off period, the divorce was finalized without a hitch. The very moment we walked out of the civil affairs office, Daisy posted a new update on her social media. She wrote, "Good things take time. From now on, I'm officially Mrs. Tristan." Attached was a photo of her holding an ultrasound image from a prenatal checkup. I couldn't help but laugh. So that's why Tristan had agreed so quickly to the divorce a few years ago, after endless late-night stress and far too much alcohol. Tristan had been diagnosed with low sperm motility. The doctors had said his chances of having a child were extremely low, but now Daisy was pregnant. Looks like the Tristan family had finally secured their long-awaited heir. Too bad their little crown prince would inherit nothing more than pots and pans. Because I had completely withdrawn all financial support, no more Bellamy funds, no more business favors, no more free rides. I was genuinely curious to see how long Tristan could keep calling himself CEO without my backing. After the divorce, Tristan moved out of the luxurious home we once shared and relocated to the old family residence with Daisy. That house, every inch of it, was designed by me, from the imported Italian tiles in the entryway to the French garden roses I had flown in every spring. My taste, my money, letting them live there in comfort. Not happening. Veronica ever. The fire starter pulled a few strings. She had my garage opened and picked out the most expensive supercar from the collection. Then she rang me up and said we are paying them a visit. Before we left, she leaned against the car with a wicked grin and said, "Darling, tonight you dress like you own the world because you do." When we arrived, the moving company was already there packing up the house. The grand living room was in chaos. Boxes stacked high, workers wrapping crystal and porcelain. With practiced care, the echoes of footsteps and tape being pulled filled the air. Tristan stood off to the side, his expression dark and stormy like thunderclouds gathering over a battlefield. His mother's hands trembled with fury, clutching her designer's shawl so tightly her knuckles turned white. And Daisy, she looked like she'd seen a ghost frozen in place, lips parted, eyes wide in disbelief. One of the movers approached me, hesitantly. The large crystal chandelier in the main hall. "It's tricky to remove. There's a chance it might get damaged in the process." Yes, the chandelier. It was the most extravagant piece in the house, suspended from the ceiling like a crown of light. Tristan's mother adored it. Daisy had once gushed about how it gave off old money, energy, claiming it made the house feel like a European manor. I didn't blink. "Take it down," I ordered, voice calm but firm. "If it breaks, so be it. What's it really worth? Anyway, Even if it shattered into 1,000 worthless pieces, I wouldn't leave it behind for them to enjoy. Not after everything. Daisy, standing in the now mostly empty foyer, finally snapped out of her daze. She spun around to face me, her eyes red with emotion as the reality hit her, like a punch to the chest. "What are you doing? All of this belongs to Tristan's family," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "I swear I'll call the police." I had one foot in the car when I paused, slowly turning back to face her. A cold smile tugged at the corners of my lips. "Tristan's families." I echoed, my tone dripping with mockery. "Did he not tell you?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "He signed a prenuptial agreement. Everything here, every stick of furniture, every painting, every chandelier belongs to me." Tristan's face turned a shade darker. His jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might snap. His mother looked like she could grind her teeth into dust from how hard she was clenching them. But neither said a word they couldn't, because everything I said was true. I stepped fully into the car and shut the door without looking back. Veronica sat behind the wheel, adjusting her sunglasses with lazy elegance. She glanced out the window at Daisy, her lips curling into a devilish smile. "Marrying Tristan," she said dryly. "Bold move. Your blessings are just beginning." Then she stepped on the gas, and with a roar of the engine, we sped off down the driveway, leaving behind nothing but silence and broken pride. I couldn't help but laugh as we turned the corner. Veronica could be vicious when she wanted to be, and I loved her for it. Of course, I'd already given Tristan's business partners a heads up, his family's company. It was only a matter of time before it collapsed. The fall had been a long time coming. Thinking back to the day I first returned to Eldoria, Daisy had wasted no time making an appearance. She showed up at my front gate, dressed to the nines. Her entire look had upgraded. A sleek designer dress, polished heels, and that Hermes bag on her arm around her neck was a pearl necklace. I immediately recognized it once belonged to Tristan's mother and had been worn at my wedding. Even the car she arrived in was different now. A brand new Bentley with a uniformed driver opening the door for her. She stepped out confidently, a woman who clearly thought she had one. "Reina," she said sweetly, folding her hands in front of her. "Sorry to bother you, but I'm pregnant with Tristan's child. I think it's time you stop dragging things out and sign the divorce papers." She stood there under the bright morning sun, looking so poised and delicate. Her skin was pale, her neck swan-like, and she was playing the role of the gentle, understanding woman to perfection. For a moment, I actually blinked in disbelief. So this was what she thought, that while I was vacationing in the Maldives, I'd been crying over heartbreak, too weak to deal with reality, sweetly naive, or just plain stupid. Looking back now, maybe Veronica was right all along. Daisy had fought tooth and nail to win Tristan's heart. Maybe she really believed this was love. Maybe she thought all her suffering had finally paid off. Maybe for her, the blessings were just beginning. As for me, I decided to stay with Veronica for a while. Her amusement park development project in the south of the city was about to break ground, and I needed a change of scenery. Anyway, one afternoon we went to meet with the project's lead designer, and that's when I saw Wesley again. Wesley, my senior from university. He had chased me for 4 years straight. The golden boy who won every academic scholarship, who was later handpicked for a prestigious overseas graduate program back then. He was brilliant, disciplined, and persistent. The kind of man girls wrote secret love letters to. And now he was standing right in front of me again, this time as a world-class designer. The designer we were meeting that day happened to be one of Wesley's friends from abroad, and Wesley had tagged along to assist with communication and coordination. The setting was an elegantly minimalist conference room in a downtown high-rise, with soft classical music playing in the background, and sunlight spilling in through tall floor-to-ceiling windows, warming the marble floors and casting a golden glow over everything. The meeting went surprisingly smoothly, with Veronica's keen eye for aesthetics and her ability to express what I couldn't quite articulate. We quickly finalized the initial design proposal, Everything felt seamless, as if we had rehearsed it beforehand. Just as we were packing up to leave, Wesley called out my name. I turned to see him standing near the window, half bathed in sunlight. The warm glow outlined the sharp angles of his jawline and made his refined features even more striking. He had one hand in his pocket, and in the other, he held a delicately wrapped paper bag. Veronica caught the shift in atmosphere instantly. She raised her eyebrows at me, smirked, and with a conspiratorial wink, stepped back to give us space, very deliberately, I might add. The room quieted for a second. The air between us grew heavier, charged with a subtle tension. I wasn't quite sure how to break it, so I smiled and said, "Ikis. Long time, no, see." Wesley walked over and handed me the bag. His voice was calm, but there was something warm and familiar in his tone. "Yeah, it's been a while. I figured you'd skip breakfast like always. So I got you something from your favorite cafe." I blinked, genuinely caught off guard. I'd noticed him carrying the bag earlier, but never imagined it was for me. "You remembered." I took the bag from him without hesitation, my grin growing. "Thank you. Next time dinner's on me." He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and gave a soft laugh, that familiar, gentle smile tugging at his lips. "I've got some things to take care of later, but I'll be waiting for your message." Back at the office, Veronica pounced on me. The moment we stepped in, her eyes practically sparkling with curiosity. "So what was that about?" she asked. Grinning, I rolled my eyes and tapped her forehead. "Lightly eat first, gossip later." I handed her one of the still warm pastries from the bag and popped another into my own mouth. She took a dramatic bite, chewed for a second, then stared at me with wide, fake, betrayed eyes, as if the pastry had personally offended her. "This is so good. You are trying to distract me, aren't you?" I simply smiled. The pastry was buttery and sweet, with just the right texture. Wesley hadn't changed. He still remembered all the little details. But despite the brief warmth, I felt romance wasn't on my mind. Not right now. Tristan's company was barely hanging on ever since the divorce. I had taken back all my premarital assets, both financial and strategic. The so-called business partners, who had once rushed to collaborate with his family, were only there out of respect for the Bellamy name. Now they were pulling out one after another. Some even chose to break existing contracts, willingly paying steep penalties just to sever ties. The business, now stripped of its support system, was crumbling. Cash flow was tight. Projects were stalled, and the once grand office that Tristan used to show off proudly was now riddled with panic and overworked employees. To make matters worse, Daisy, now heavily pregnant, had turned even more delicate and demanding. She insisted on organic meals from exclusive chefs, slept only on imported Egyptian cotton sheets, and wore nothing but the softest loungewear made of rare fabrics. All of it had to be custom-made. Back when Tristan's family had money, her requests might have been shrugged off as minor indulgences. But now, every demand was a stab to an already bleeding company. Tristan, stretched to his limits, was caught in the crossfire at work. He was scrambling to put out financial fires at home. What little time he spent there. He faced his mother's nagging and Daisy's endless complaints. He looked like a shadow of his former self. And from what I heard, he was practically living at the office now. Veronica filled me in on all of this while lounging on my couch. In a silk robe, a glittery sheet mask plastered over her face, she relayed the chaos with a gleam in her eye, clearly enjoying the karmic spectacle. "Serves him right," she said through the mask voice, slightly muffled after what he did. "He can't even get a basic loan approved anymore. The banks have all blacklisted him." I picked up my phone and opened my social feed. Right at the top was Daisy's latest post, a carefully curated 9-grid photo set featuring a limited edition Hermès handbag, complete with professional lighting and perfectly posed shots. Her caption read, "Some say my blessings are just beginning. Well, then I'll take that as a good omen." The tone was overly cheerful, A little too forced, it reeked of desperation, like she was trying to prove something to the world, or maybe to herself. I hit the like button, not out of support, of course. More like the way you watch a clown's performance at a circus, morbid curiosity. Veronica, now half asleep with the mask still on, cracked one eye open and snorted, "You know that bag she's flaunting. I'm betting that's the last luxury item she'll get this year." Then she cackled and added, "If Tristan's mom saw this necklace you just got, she'd probably faint from the sheer rage." I glanced down at the newly delivered Harry Winston haute couture necklace I had just inboxed moments ago. Platinum with diamonds that sparkled like stars, delicately crafted yet dazzling. I casually tossed it back into its velvet box like it was nothing more than costume jewelry. Veronica burst into laughter again. "That necklace alone is probably worth more than his entire family business now." Maybe it was, but I wasn't counting. I couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle. Veronica's words were sharp, no doubt, but she wasn't wrong. Ever since I married Tristan, his mother had never truly accepted me. No reason, no explanation, just quiet, simmering disapproval. From day one, she acted as though Tristan was some rare treasure, a man every woman should feel blessed to have in her eyes. It was only natural that I, no matter my background or accomplishments, should be eternally grateful for the honor of being with him. Well, now that rare treasure was all hers again, free as a bird, unburdened by the wife he once took for granted. I hoped she enjoyed cleaning up the mess. Just then, Veronica's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, smirked, and turned to me. "There's a gala in a few days," she said casually. "Come with me." I gave it a moment's thought. Why not? I had no pressing plans, and truth be told, I wouldn't mind making a public appearance. It would be the perfect chance to send a message loud and clear. "Miss Bellamy is back a few days before the event." Veronica, had someone deliver a custom haute couture gown from Alexis Mobile. The moment I saw it, I knew it was the one, a muted jade green. The fabric flowed like water. The silhouette was simple, not flashy, but every line was precise, tailored to perfection. It hugged my figure, elegantly whispering confidence rather than shouting. It paired with a set of jade drop earrings in the same tone. The entire look exuded quiet sophistication, cool, composed, and unmistakably powerful. The night of the gala, the venue sparkled under crystal chandeliers. Warm golden lighting danced across the marble floors. A string quartet played soft classical music, filling the hall with a serene, almost cinematic ambience. It was a gathering of LDOAs, elite old money, new money, power, and pedigree, all under one roof. Veronica and I entered side by side. Heads turned, whispers followed. We mingled with ease, exchanging polite smiles and carefully measured pleasantries with the ladies of high society. I could feel their gazes lingering, trying to size me up, some curious, others cautious. After all, I disappeared for a while. They weren't sure what kind of woman had come back, and then I heard it. A voice I knew too, well familiar, disgustingly familiar. I turned my head slowly, and there he was, Tristan. He was standing next to an older, balding executive. His posture stiff, his smile tight and uneasy. His eyes flicked around the room nervously like a man walking on thin ice, and standing beside him, clinging to his arm, was Daisy. Her presence was jarringly out of place. She wore an overly embellished dress that looked expensive, but screamed poor taste. Her eyes darted nervously, and the discomfort in her body language was almost comical. Veronica tugged at my arm, her eyes sparkling. She leaned in and whispered, "Oh, this is going to be so good." The man Tristan was awkwardly trying to impress was none other than Mr. Blake, a towering figure in the industry and one of the most ruthless businessmen in Eldoria. His reputation was legendary: sharp-tongued, impossible to please, and absolutely allergic to groveling incompetence. Mr. Blake glanced at Tristan with clear disdain. His lips curled into a sneer. "This is how you ask someone for a favor," he snapped. "You don't even offer me a drink, and you want to talk business." Tristan's face went white, then red, his jaw clenched. as he forced a smile, clearly scrambling for a response. "Mr. Blake, But before he could even finish, Daisy jumped in, stepping forward like some noble martyr. "I'll pour you a drink, Mr. Blake," she blurted out. "Please don't be too hard on Tristan. He's under a lot of pressure there." It was her usual trick, that sugary, wide-eyed self-sacrificing routine, always trying to paint herself as the understanding one, the gentle woman who always came to the rescue. Unfortunately for her, Mr. Blake was immune to that kind of performance. His eyes narrowed, a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "So this is Tristan's new wife," he said, voice thick with sarcasm. Quite the downgrade from the last one. A cold chuckle escaped him, and he turned to Tristan with finality. "I think we're done here. Don't contact me again." Then just as he turned to leave, his eyes landed on me in an instant. Everything changed. The disdain vanished. The icy expression melted into polite surprise. He straightened his posture, raised his glass, and walked straight toward me with a smile. "Miss Bellamy, it's been far too long. I was just thinking, I have a business proposal you might be interested in." I returned his smile, with perfect poise, lifting my glass to meet his. From the corner of my eye, I saw Tristan standing frozen in place. His shoulders were tense, his face flushed with humiliation. Daisy beside him had tears welling up in her eyes, biting her lip in that familiar attempt to look fragile and mistreated. She reached out slightly, as if expecting comfort, but Tristan didn't respond. Instead, his eyes found mine, and in that moment, I lifted my glass again. This time a silent toast, just for him to regret, to choices, and to never being mine again. Tristan forced a smile, lowered his head, and quietly walked off toward the corner of the hall. Daisy stomped her foot in frustration, then hurried after him, clutching her dress. After I finished exchanging pleasantries with Mr. Blake, Veronica leaned over to continue her gossip in a hushed voice. "Word is Tristan had to sell Daisy's Hermes's bag just to find someone to get him into this party," she whispered with a smirk. "He came all this way, hoping to land a deal with Mr. Blake, but now looks like that ship has sailed." She clicked her tongue and rolled her eyes playfully. I took a small sip of champagne, a faint smile tugging at the corner of my lips. Whatever happened to Tristan no longer had anything to do with me. But a good joke, I wasn't going to miss it. As I lowered my gaze, I spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. Wesley, holding a glass of wine, raised it slightly toward me from afar in greeting. I nodded in return, but didn't feel like striking up a conversation. Some things once cut off are better left that way. After the banquet ended, I ran into Tristan. Outside the venue, it felt like he had been deliberately waiting for me. I instinctively wanted to avoid him, but he walked straight up without hesitation. Seeing him up close, I realized just how worn down he looked. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble along his jaw, and a few stray, gray hairs in his otherwise dark hair. Veronica was about to say something, but I gently stopped her. Tristan hesitated for a long while before finally speaking. "Rainer, no matter what, we were married once. Do you really have to be this ruthless? You've cut off every road for me." I let out a quiet, mocking laugh. Even now, Tristan still thought I had sabotaged his business, that I was the reason no one wanted to work with his company. But he never once considered the truth. If it weren't for me and the Bellamy family's influence and connections, no one would have ever agreed to cooperate with Tristan's family in the first place. The real reason his family's company fell apart was because of his father's terrible reputation in the business world, burned bridges, shady deals, and countless enemies. When things collapsed, people were all too eager to kick them while they were down. The only reason any of those companies were willing to do business with them at all was out of respect for me and the Bellamy name. Now that we were divorced, even if I didn't say a word without our family's backing, no one was going to risk partnering with the Tristans again. But of course, Tristan never saw it that way. He thought everything was because of his own hard work, that he would have been better off without me. So just 2 years into the marriage, he got bored and betrayed me without a second thought. "Tristan," I said, voice calm and cold. Maybe you should take some time to reflect on your own actions. I didn't bother explaining further. What was the point? Talking to him was like talking to a wall. Veronica, far less patient than me, took off one of her earrings and flung it at his chest with a smirk. Here, that earring should be enough to buy your little side chick another designer bag. Consider it a gift. But next time, don't you dare come looking for Reiner again. Then she raised her fist slightly and scoffed. Otherwise, I'll make sure the Tristan family goes bankrupt by morning with that. She grabbed my hand and led me away without looking back. Tristan was left standing alone in the wind, looking utterly lost. The next day I received a call from Tristan's mother. As usual, her tone was sharp and bitter. "Reiner, what's your problem? Are you deliberately trying to bring down my son just because he's more successful than you? You really have a black heart." I pulled the phone away from my ear slightly and rubbed it with my finger. "And what if I am what? Are you going to kill me for it? If you've got time to lecture someone, maybe put that energy into worrying about your son and the precious grandchild growing in Daisy's belly." Her voice immediately shot up. "What are you implying?" I hung up without hesitation. Then I forwarded her all the documents Mr. Blake had sent me right at that moment. Veronica looked up from her phone, eyes wide with excitement. "Reiner, Tristan's family just went bankrupt again." "Wait already? That was fast. I thought Tristan would at least hold out a little longer." I glanced at the trending searches, and something felt off. The bankruptcy alone wasn't enough to shoot it to the top of the hot list. Then I refreshed the page hash. Tristan family bankruptcy. Tristan cheating. Karma. Tristan raising another Maine's child. Within seconds, all three hashtags rocketed to the top spots. Just as I was trying to figure it out, my phone rang. It was Wesley. And suddenly, everything made sense. Turns out Mr. Blake had been hoping to secure the resort project in the Southern District and on the islands. Daisy had tried to flirt her way into his good graces, and that raised a few red flags for him. So he launched a background check, and oh, what he found. Daisy wasn't the innocent girl she pretended to be. She had a secret boyfriend all along, and the baby she was carrying, definitely not Tristan's. She was just using him as a walking ATM. Tristan, poor fool, had no idea he'd been played and was about to raise someone else's child. Mr. Blake sent me everything, photos, documents, proof, and I forwarded them straight to Tristan's mother. As for Tristan's family's bankruptcy, combined with this explosive scandal that was clearly Wesley's doing, I asked him directly, "Was this your handiwork, Wesley?" Normally smooth, tongue and sharp as a blade in debate club. "Actually," stammered. "Why? But Reiner, don't be mad. Let me explain." I couldn't help but laugh at the panic in his voice. "What's so funny?" he asked. Confused? Nothing. I said lightly, "Actually, thank you." Truth be told, I had been feeling a bit off about everything. But then my assistant came in with a fresh update. After I rejected Tristan last night, he ran straight to the media and tried to smear both me and Wesley. I felt sick to my stomach. I had once chosen Tristan, without hesitation. He was the one who cheated, and now he dared to twist the story and play the victim. No wonder Wesley, usually so restrained and composed, decided to strike back this time. Veronica added fuel to the fire by revealing that back when Tristan's family went bankrupt, they had relied on the Bellamy family for support and basically lived off them. That revelation completely ruined Tristan, online and offline. He was utterly destroyed. No hope of ever making a comeback. The next time I heard about him, he was lying in a hospital bed with a broken leg, unable to afford the medical bills. Apparently, after the party that night, Tristan went home and had a massive fight with Daisy. He blamed her for ruining his last chance to turn things around. The very next day, his family's business officially went under. Daisy. She aborted the child, took all the luxury goods Tristan had bought her, and ran off not long after she found herself a new sugar daddy. This time a flashy Novo R. As for Tristan, he was completely blacklisted in the industry. A comeback dream on. He had always aimed high, but lacked real capability, and he couldn't bring himself to take on a normal job. After living a life of privilege, how could he possibly bear to work like an ordinary person, egged on by others? He borrowed a large amount of money from loan sharks, hoping to make a final comeback through a new business venture. But he got scammed. The people on the other end, took the money and vanished, unable to repay the loans. His one dignified mother, who had lived a pampered life for decades, had to start working to help pay off his debts. But her efforts barely made a dent. During a recent debt collection attempt, Tristan couldn't take the insults anymore and lashed out at the loan collectors. He ended up getting severely beaten and left with a permanently injured leg, confined to a hospital bed. Then one day, I got a call from his mother. "Juan, it's Mom. I know I treated you badly before it was all my fault, but can't you let bygones be bygones? After all, you and Tristan were once husband and wife. You can't just leave him to suffer like this." Her voice trembled with sobs as wave after wave of models walked past me on the runway. I casually pointed toward the clothes rack and said to Linda, with a smile, "Wrap it all up. I'll take everything." Linda beamed with delight, while the voice on the other end of the phone suddenly fell silent. I sneered and said, "Daisy, I'm busy shopping right now. As for Tristan, sorry, can't help. Got to go." Then I hung up and immediately removed the SM card from my phone. I turned my attention back to shopping, fully focused. A few minutes later, Veronica came gliding down from the second floor. Her face lit up with a knowing smile. The look on her face, she clearly had something up her sleeve. Sure enough, she sat down beside me, her voice suddenly turning sweet and coy. Juan, do you have time tonight?" I raised an eyebrow. She looked a little guilty. "Wesley's hosting a little get-together tonight. Come with me." Leaning back, I finally got it. "So that's what this was about?" "Nope," I replied deliberately. "Why doesn't he invite me himself?" Veronica clung to my arm, pouting. "He said Malcolm will be there too." Now it all made sense. Malcolm, the designer for the amusement park, was one of Wesley's close buddies. Looks like someone's got a little crush. All right, then for the sake of my bestie's happiness, I'd make the sacrifice. The party that night was on a yacht. It was a small group, all familiar faces, and we had a great time. I leaned against the railing on the deck, gazing out at the endless sea and sky blending into one another. Suddenly, the ocean breeze stopped. That's when I noticed someone standing beside me. Turning my head, I saw Wesley. He was wearing a dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Standing tall under the soft deck lights, the glow outlined his silhouette. Calm and composed, Wesley turned his head slightly toward me, a playful smile tugging at his lips, not enjoying the view. Tonight, I gave a faint smirk. "The view's fine, just a bit crowded." He chuckled and took a step closer. His voice lowered, teasing. "Should I back off then? Or are you actually hoping I'd stand even closer?" I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He didn't seem offended, leaning casually against the railing beside me. He swirled the champagne in his glass and said lightly, "Veronica seems to be in a really good mood lately." I glanced at him, and you know why that is. Wesley nodded, the smile in his eyes deepening. "Of course, the guy she likes is on this boat tonight." I scoffed. "So you dragged me here to play matchmaker?" "No." His expression suddenly turned serious as his gaze locked onto mine. "I came to see you for a moment." It felt like the wind had picked up again. The ocean rippled, and so did something inside me. I looked down slightly, my voice calm. "I thought you only liked the obedient ones." "Too bad," he murmured, leaning in just enough. His voice brushed against my ear. "I've recently developed a taste for the difficult ones." I let out a soft laugh and turned to face him. "Wesley, don't fall for me. You won't survive it." He arched an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Now I really want to try." Just then, Veronica's voice broke through the tension, an excited little squeal from behind. "What are you two whispering about?" "Over here." I turned to see her walking toward us, arm in arm with Malcolm, her whole face glowing with happiness. I gave her a half smile. Just talking about the sea breeze, she shot me a look, clearly suspicious, but said nothing. Instead, she tugged me toward the group for another round of drinks. The night seemed calm on the surface, but beneath it all, something had shifted. Someone was falling. Someone was hiding secrets. And me, for the first time in a while, I felt curious about what might happen next. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.